In this tutorial, we're going to be talking through a case study. Now, this is a client that would have seen one of my YouTube videos. They then would have followed that up by going to the landing page or one of the landing pages, and then choosing the How to Overcome Lower Back Pain consultation and the online course. And so what we're going to do is basically talk you through the whole process. So what happens is, as you can see on the screen here, is we've got questionnaires. So they fill those out from the landing page. Then those questionnaires come to me and I'm able to start reading through them and start preparing for what comes next, which is the consultation, which is where we then sit. I then am able to get a little bit more information based on what the questionnaires, there's 2 questionnaires by the way, an initial questionnaire and a little bit more of an in-depth consultation type questionnaire. What then happens is during the consultation, which is done via Zoom, via WhatsApp, by any sort of video medium online, I'm then able to go through, dig a little bit deeper into their lower back pain, gain a little bit more information, which then brings me to the advice and recommendations. So based on that, I'm then able to put the advice and recommendations together to be able to help them reduce their lower back pain and overcome their lower back pain. Then there is 2 weeks of online support, and then that's where they receive the advice and recommendations. If there's anything in there they don't understand, they have any queries, they have any questions, they're able to email. I'm able to create smaller videos. I'm able to obviously answer the questions via email, anything like that. So they are able to understand what the advice and recommendations is putting forward to them. I'm then able to provide them. And then finally, at the end, are the results that they achieved. Now, this was just one consult, so the 2 questionnaires, 1 consultation, and 2 weeks of online support. Now, I have done with other clients, I've done more consultations over a period of time, but this case study was just 1 consultation and 2 weeks of online support. So let's get stuck into the information that was gained and the results that were achieved. The first step in this coaching is the initial questionnaire and consultation questionnaire. So how you would get there, after watching this video, if you were to click the link that's in the description, you would go through to the web page. Obviously you can find out more about it there, but let's just say you enter your name and email address and you click submit. You would then be sent an email with the initial questionnaire and the consultation questionnaire. You would fill those out and then submit them, and they would get sent to me. I would then start reading and prepping for the consultation. I would also be in contact via email to book the consultation in, which would then be done via Zoom, via FaceTime, via WhatsApp, any sort of video online medium, if you will. So that is essentially the process that we're on. So this client case study, this is exactly what she did. So I'm sort of just talking you through all the different steps. Now, the consultation and the questionnaire is about me gaining information to learn and understand about your lower back pain. Obviously, you're going to do that as well. And then it builds into the advice and recommendations, which I'm going to talk about a bit later on. So it's just a little bit more than just rocking up for a consultation and then me talking at you or giving you a bunch of exercises. There's some actual understanding going on, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about your lower back pain so I can give you the best advice and recommendations possible. So this client, as you can see, she'd had an MRI, she had a herniated disc at L5, and she had a bulging disc at L4. Slightly subjective, but pain levels were a 6 out of 10. She was experiencing them every day, 7 days a week, and it was less in the morning and worse as the day went on. So this is already starting to help me understand the lower back pain and starting to inform the advice and recommendations that would then follow all of this gathering of information. So her back hurt at the gym. She was doing certain exercise and it triggered her pain. Now, with regards to disc bulges and disc herniations, as she mentions in the next slide, I think it is, she starts to recognise things. It wasn't just what happened at the gym. She starts to recognise things that were happening previous to that, which led up to this point, which is a useful understanding to have, because disc bulges and herniations are generally, when the pain occurs or when the bulge or when the herniation happens, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. So it happened at the gym, intense sciatica, and has been getting worse. And as you're going to find out in the next slide, she'd already seen a physio before me, which had improved it, but it was getting worse again. So what that tells me is they hadn't looked and done this information gathering before seeing her and giving her the right recommendations and advice. They'd just given her a bunch of exercise, but we'll talk about that in the next slide. She's unable to lie on either side of her body because of the nerve pain that's going down the legs. Easing of symptoms when she lies on her tummy. She cannot sit or drive, cannot stretch legs because the sciatica flares up, and by the afternoon it's unbearable. And it does not hurt to walk. So already now I'm starting to glean information about what's triggering the pain and what's relieving the pain. So again, this is starting to inform the advice and recommendations that will follow this and the consultation. There was also more information talking about postures, positions, movements and loads which trigger the pain and relieve the pain. So we go through some of those. So things that made it worse were things like house cleaning, lifting groceries, too much walking. So where walking or fast walking doesn't hurt the back, too much of it does. So again, that's a useful understanding to have. So with regards to all of this information, it's starting to help me build a picture so I can make the best advice and recommendations. But this was the situation she was in when she contacted me. So what we'll now do is we will go through and talk a little bit more about the actual consultation. So this information was from the 2 questionnaires. There is more than this, but obviously it would just be slide after slide after slide. So I'm just trying to give you a summary and an overview of it all. So once she'd finished off these questionnaires, I contacted her, we booked in the consultation, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Step 2 is the consultations. So as we've just talked about, we've completed the initial questionnaires. I've then been in contact via email. We've booked in the consultation, and we are now face-to-face online, like you kind of are with me now. And we're now talking and going a little bit, digging deeper, getting more in depth about the lower back pain. So again, what's on this slide is not all the information. We are generally online for about 45 minutes talking about it, so there's lots of information. I'm typing away, writing as much down as I can whilst you, the individual, is talking about your lower back pain. But again, I just wanted to give an overview. There's more information I've got here on the screen, so I will just sort of touch on some of that information as well. But as we've mentioned, the initial cause was at the gym. But as I mentioned, she started to recognise, after explaining about the disc herniations and bulges, she would then start to recognise things from the past that were contributing to it. So it's the straw that broke the camel's back. It leads up to a point, and then the back goes. Then just trying to get some sort of timeline about when all this was happening. So the MRI L4, L5. So when? It was December 2020. Now, we were talking in April 2021. So this was, 5 months after? So what had happened is December 2020, she had a herniation. It was all going down the right leg. By the end of Feb, it had come back after 2 weeks. So this was after seeing a physio for 6 weeks. She then had an MRI in March, new herniation, going down both legs. So it happened, it then come back, it had gone, and then it had come back, and there was a new herniation. So pain increases in the afternoon, as we've mentioned. So did physio for 6 weeks. My question, has it helped? What the physio did mention is that a disc herniation takes 6 weeks to heal. Now, that might be sort of structural healing, but if we aren't removing the pain triggers and the postures, positions, movements and loads, then there's a good chance it's going to come back. So what she was given was nerve flossing, or gliding as she would call them, Mackenzie press up, core tensing and the squat. So that was essentially the makeup of 6 weeks worth of physio. Now, again, as I've mentioned, it doesn't sort of look like or sound like they've gone through this really trying to understand the lower back pain. They're just saying, right, you've got lower back pain, here are 4 things to do. And they haven't really tried to understand the pain triggers, remove them, which then reduces the risk of it coming back in the future. So other things that I was finding out, which was talking about she couldn't sit. So there was just sitting at home, sitting at the desk, and sitting in the car. So when it was home, after 10 minutes, she would get tingling and numbness. That's just normal, just sitting at home. In the car, it was about 5 minutes, and then it was painful. So slightly different outcomes from the different types of sitting. I would imagine that's the different type of seating arrangement or different type of seat that she's in, which is triggering the pain. So again, there's some very specific things that we did with her, which would then allow her to sit for much longer periods of time. Also, understanding the time frame is crucial, because what we can then do is we can then start building capacity off the back of that, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide when we talk about the advice and recommendations. So about what time, this is another sort of crucial thing, because what we're also trying to do is trying to find a means of measurement, which is what time in the afternoon does it really start to come on. It might be dull all the way through, but it starts building up at a certain time. So what we can then do is we can then start trying to push that time back, because it's not always about after the advice and recommendations that we're trying to eliminate the pain 100% and it never comes back. To me, that can happen, but for most people, because everyone's back pain is very specific, it's generally we're trying to find ways of reducing lower back pain, and then eventually it eliminates. So we were talking about sort of 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So we had then a time frame from when she would get up to when the pain would really come on. And it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and she would lie down in the afternoon for about 30 minutes, and that would reduce the pain. So we were again trying to find out these things that reduce the pain, and then build and structure in a plan where we could push that back and make it easier and relieve the pain for a longer period of time. So over the 45 minutes, we talked about all these different things and more. Again, I can't put all of this in because, well, not that it would really matter, but it's just a lot of information to take in a short period of time. And I want to try and keep it as concise as I can without keeping it too concise or overwhelming you. So it's just trying to get that balance right. But essentially, this is the type of thing that we're trying to find out during the online consultation. And if necessary, there are in the online course, there is an online assessment, physical assessment, which I would either go through parts of it with you, or I would ask you to do it before the consultation. Just send me the results, and again, that's more information for me to start informing my advice and recommendations. So what we'll do now is we will now talk about the advice and the recommendations that I was able to send her after the questionnaire and after the consultation. Step 3 is the advice and recommendations. So I've been gathering as much information as I can from the initial questionnaire, the consultation questionnaire, and the consultation itself. So I've got as much information as I can get, so I can now make informed decisions specific to your lower back pain. So with regards to the physio that we discussed, it was probably very broad brush. You've got lower back pain, here's some exercises to do. Little bit of specificity, but not effective exercises with regards to the Mackenzie push-up. So what we have to understand is more specific pain triggers and more specific pain relievers, if you will. This is what we did. So as you can see, there are 4 parts to this: core skills, 2 fundamental movements, A and B, so sitting and standing, lifting, and then there was a bit on decompressions. Now, there are more things that were put in, but again, don't want to spend too long on each section. I want to keep it as an overview, a summary, but give you enough information to understand what the service is and essentially how to overcome lower back pain. What then happens is, alongside the online course, I'm also able to point you at certain information. So here on the online course, there is a workshop about the core skills. There is a workshop about these fundamental movements. What I was able to do with the decompressions is give her some more specific information in the form of a video and send it to her separately. But what I'm trying to do, so you're not just listening to the advice and recommendations, it's trying to point you to more specific information. So these are like half an hour workshops that you would sit, watch and understand, but I'm able to point you to more specific information like the sitting, so spend more time understanding that rather than the pushing and pulling section, for example, or the carrying section, because that was what came up in the consultation. So it's me just using the information I've gleaned from you and then essentially feeding you the advice and recommendations based on that. So the online course, I'm pointing you to specific information. So the core skills, why are these three, hip hinge, neutral posture and brace, so important? Well, with regards to a disc bulge, a flex spine is essentially a part of that trigger. So if you go into a flex spine, you're creating a disc bulge and you're creating the pain that you say you want rid of. So what we have to do, if we bring that into a neutral posture, which is that gentle inward curve, we are minimizing that risk. We are spreading load around the disc evenly. So with the neutral posture, we put it in that position. With the brace, we are then holding it in that position, which is then stabilizing the spine, because another thing she mentioned was painful catches. So the brace will help mitigate or reduce certainly the painful catches depending on how she then moves. Any quick jerky movements will increase the risk. If we can keep the movement slow, it will reduce the risk. So there's all these different other bits that come with it, and as I mentioned, I'm trying to give you as quick an overview as I can with as much information as I can. And then the hip hinge is essentially the way of moving with regards to lifting, bending, doing the gardening, which was something that she said that she had trouble with. But if we can hinge from the hip and not the spine, we're going to be maintaining the neutral posture and maintaining the brace, which is going to be, again, reducing the risk of the disc bulging, which is then reducing the risk of the nerve being irritated, which is then reducing the risk of the pain shooting down the legs. So those are the three core skills that essentially go through all of these next three things. So again, the movement or the fundamental movements, sitting and standing. With regards to sitting and standing, they are essentially static postures. Now, the body doesn't like that. It likes to move, so we need to change posture and position. But keeping in mind those three core skills that we talked about, the neutral spine, the brace, and the hip hinge. So we need to be mindful of those whilst we are changing position. When it comes to lifting, again, we're still talking about, or we're still keeping in mind the three core skills. But we're focusing now on actually moving. So we then got some different options. So we're lifting in more of like a deadlift position, which is with both feet next to each other, but then we could be split stance, we could be single leg stance, and again, all of this is supported in videos and workshops through the online course. Just quickly going back to the sitting and standing that I missed, was sitting in blocks as well. So when she was at home, she could sit for about 15 minutes, sort of 10 to 15 minutes. So it would, the advice like that would be, right, we need to sit for 8 minutes, make sure we're pain free. We then need to get up, possibly walk around, maybe, because something that relieved her pain was lying on the tummy, lie on the tummy for a couple of minutes, then go back to sitting. So we can then sit for 16 minutes pain free, just with a 2-3 minute block or pain free block or rest in between that. Adding a cushion to position the pelvis. So again, when we sit, generally we will go into a flexed posture, so we will slouch essentially. If we can use a cushion, we can maintain the spine, and we can then, again, reduce risk of the bulge, reduce risk of the nerve irritation, reduce risk of the pain going down the leg. How big the cushion needs to be and how arching the spine needs to be is down to the individual. So there will be a process of elimination with that in trying to find the optimal position. Is it more arched? Is it slightly flatter? Or is it somewhere in between? So it's understanding all of those things. And this was more prominent certainly when she was in the car. And as you'll see when we go through the results, we were able to improve that quite significantly. And then finally, the decompressions. So initially it would aggravate, but what we were able to do is talk about the position of the pelvis. So again, talking about that neutral spine, being able to minimize the bulge in the disc. So when she did the decompressions, what she was finding is her pelvis was moving, which was creating more pain than relieving it. So in that video, I was able to talk through quick introduction, quick little workshop, and just talk about the position of the pelvis, then give her some ideas for how to decompress, and also maintaining the position of the pelvis. And again, what we were able to do is reduce that pain quite significantly, and allow her to decompress, which she felt was giving her some good results. So she was able to then continue with that rather than eliminate it, which is something that she wanted to do with a couple of things that the physio gave her, the nerve flossing and the nerve glides, as she called them. She was finding them to aggravate. So it was essentially, well, if they're aggravating, just take them out, just stop, don't do it. But with decompressions, she did find the benefit from them once she'd managed to position the pelvis in the correct place. So that is, again, as a brief overview of the advice and recommendations and the bit that comes with it. Obviously it's directing you in the online course what to do, but if there's any supporting material that I need to send, then I will just send it via email. So you get much more of a package when it comes to the advice and recommendations. So what we will now do is talk a little bit more about the 2-week support that she was given after the advice and recommendations were sent. Step 4 is online support. So you get 2 weeks worth. So what we're able to do is answer any questions, queries, and then start talking about some progressions once we've sorted any questions or queries are out. So what will generally happen is I will send the advice and recommendations, and then a few days later I will say something like, as you can see on the screen here, what has improved and what do you think has helped this improvement? I will also ask what's not working, because again, it's not about me trying to tell you that I'm right, if that's the right way of describing it. It's me giving you the information, you then applying it and finding out how your body responds. So some of the information I might give isn't as effective as others. So we need to manage and mould that, which is where the questions and the queries come out. So I will then instigate a few days later, right, how are you getting on? What's working, what's not working? So it was doing well with the postures, really trying to make them habits, and feel the difference in how I move and how I sit. So she's already starting to feel a difference just a few days later. There have been a couple of days where I didn't even lie down in the afternoon, which is significant. So this is just from giving her that information and no other feedback. She's just started applying it, and there are some days where she isn't feeling that fatigue. So that 1 p.m. cutoff that we talked about, she didn't have to do it because the pain wasn't there, or it certainly wasn't significant enough to want her to try and lie down to try and relieve it or rest for that 30 minutes. So just off the back of that, we've got improvement. So we're really starting to tick some boxes with regards to reducing the pain and in some respects eliminating the pain. So I bought the lumbar cushion. So again, we talked about that, the cushion, trying to position the pelvis, and I've been practicing sitting for periods throughout the day. The decompressions have been an incredible benefit. So as soon as we got that little position worked out, it made all the difference. So thank you for the video. That's the decompressions video. I was doing them wrong initially. So it wasn't a case of the decompressions didn't work. We just dug a little bit deeper, looked at the posture, and we sorted that out, and we were able to get, as you can see, quite significant benefits just in the next 3 or 4 days. What then happened is over a period of time, again, we just let her, I obviously answered these questions that she had. There was more in this email, but I answered those questions that she had. She then went away, and then I think maybe a week and a half later, so it was right at the end of the 2 weeks, she basically asked, how do I progress with the big 3? There was more onto this, because basically what she wanted to do was wanted to start getting back into exercise, wanted to know or try and build an idea of when she's going from, let's just say, rehab back into sort of fitness training. So it's trying to decipher when that time is. And in some respects, there is no real time frame to it. It's kind of done on feel. It's when you feel ready, when your body is ready to respond. But you only know when your body is ready to respond when you start doing it, because if you're getting great feedback from all the rehab that you're doing, there is a point where it's like, well, okay, I'm getting great feedback here, but I'm sort of plateauing with great feedback. So I want to progress on now to the next point, which we would then start to look at going back into like fitness training. But we're not looking to jump in at the deep end. It's again shallow end, and then sort of walk our way down into the deep end. So it's finding out when that point was. So as I've mentioned here, your goal is based on pain levels and the pattern of those pain levels. So if they're completely reduced, then we're at a good point to be able to go into that. But even when we go into it, we've got to look for the response. Is the body giving you a positive response, i.e. pain-free, or is it giving you pain? Obviously, that would be a negative response. So it's finding the right balance and sweet spot, too much and not enough, and minimal and no pain, which will indicate this sweet spot. So again, it's trying to understand that balance, that the response that your body is giving you. So it's really you tuning into your body and understanding how you can make that step from rehabilitation into fitness. So again, when we're talking about the big three more specifically, these exercises and other ones, these exercises are designed to tune and prime your core muscles to cope with the rigors of everyday life. We're not really trying to say we want your core stronger. We want you to be able to plank for 3 minutes. We want you able to plank for 2 minutes or whatever. It's more about your everyday life. So are these exercises having a benefit to your everyday life? Are you able to garden? Are you able to sit? Because all we're trying to do initially is just put those building blocks in place to say that all that we're having a positive response. The postures that we're in giving us a positive response. We are either pain-free or we are significantly less in pain. Okay, then we start introducing exercises. Now, is the same happening? Are we pain-free, or are the pain levels still either reducing or being maintained at a low level? So we then know that those exercises are having a benefit because we're packing more on and the body is responding positively. If we do any of this and it gives us a negative response, we need to address it, just like the decompressions were. It gave a negative response, we needed to address the posture, it then gave us a positive response. So with exercises, it might be that we need to do less of them, or we need to do them not quite as frequently, so on and so forth. So it's understanding all those different variables that we need to put in place. So this is again more of the answer that I would give. Once you have got minimal to no pain, you can then choose to take on a fitness goal if this is what you want. So you can take yourself into there, but if you're just out of pain and coping with the rigors of everyday life, if that is enough, then we're good to go. You're, in a sense, you're free and ready to go. Obviously, there's things that you're going to need to remember, because one indicator of injury is previous injury. So if you've had a disc bulge in the past, you are at risk of a disc bulge in the future if you don't carry on doing what got you out of it. So it's not just getting out of it and then going back to the way you were, because you'll go back to what you had, which is a disc bulge, and then you'll have to go through the whole same process again. It's about maintaining that advice and recommendations, not only initially but ongoing as well. So that was what we were able to do over the 2-week period. Again, answering the questions, sending more content, directing her to different parts of the online course. You then keep the online course beyond the 2 weeks. You kind of got that for life. So you can keep readdressing and relearning that as and when you need to. So that's the online support. So now let's look at the results, which again I was able to get from her, I think, about a week after the online support had finished. And finally, we talk about the results. So how did she end up at the end of the questionnaires, the consultation, and the online support? Well, as you can see on the screen here, my pain hovers around 1 to 3 now. So from that 6 out of 10, we've more than halved it. So let's just say it's a 2 out of 10. So we've reduced it by, say, 80%, for example. I experience some degree of pain daily, but again, we've significantly improved it. If she decided to go on with another consultation, another 2 weeks of support, again, we would have looked to reduce that even more and be able to maintain it pain-free. She may be like that now. I'm recording this video probably a month, 2 months after I'd seen her. Where are we? July. So yes, nearly 3 months after. So she may well be pain-free now. I can still feel more intensity later in the day, so it might start at 1 in the mornings and then move to 3 in the afternoons. Again, this is just the information I've sent. I don't know the specifics about this. And I find it helpful to rest 30 minutes in the afternoon to make it through the remainder of the day. I can now sit for about 30 minutes before I feel any need to stand. So again, we've gone from that sort of 10 to 15 minutes, and we've doubled that. So we're in a much better place with that. And again, it's not about eliminating the pain and never experiencing it again. You've got to build that capacity over time. And at the time of sending this, we'd been able to sort of, let's just say, double that, possibly treble it. If it's 10 to 15 minutes, it's sort of doubled, trebled the time that she can sit pain-free. 10 to 15 minute drives, whereas before it was 5-minute drive. So again, it's like that doubling or trebling of her capacity. But it doesn't ruin my whole day with pain afterwards like it once did. And this is the big thing, is it did feel like it was ruining the rest of her life, essentially, which we were able to get her out of. Overall, I'm doing much better. While I still hurt, the intensity is manageable for the first time in months. Again, after she'd seen a physio that'd been told it healed, she was out of pain, and then back it comes. We've had a slightly more longer result from it. I feel hopeful that we'll eventually heal. I've learned that posture is everything. Great. If my posture is perfect, I can actually have zero pain, which is very important, because it's winding down that pain. Her body will learn to essentially not be in pain. I can see having a stronger core is essential to maintaining this posture, and currently find it difficult to maintain because of my weak core. So again, she's still building those building blocks in place. So it's not about sort of regular sessions that we need to build it with me there. It's very much now I've got some advice and recommendations to build on. I'll work on it, and if I need you in the future, then we would come back and answer any new questions that she has. She's anxious to begin core work. So again, this would be a point where would be useful for me to come back in when she's got to the end of the rehab and she's happy. Okay, how do I take that step from rehab back into fitness? That would be a perfect time for me to come back in and help her make that step. Because I can tell my pain is winding down, again, very important to understand that we're winding it down. It's not there and it's not there and then it's there. It's not 0 and 100%. It's 100%, 80, 60, 40, 20, 0 sort of thing. And it has the opportunity to come back as well, but we can manage those fluctuations as we go. I'm no longer plagued by spasms while she sleeps. Again, that was something that we were able to work on. I can go the whole night without one, which is tremendous. So again, more benefits. So it's not like it's one benefit. We're looking at different areas: sitting, standing, sleeping, being able to do housework, being able to do exercise. All these little things, we're getting all these little gains, which is adding up to quite a lot for her. Because, as she says here, when I first contacted you, I was getting sometimes 3 hours sleep a night. The decompressions throughout the day have also helped. So those are all the results that we were able to get her. As I've mentioned, there are certain points where it might be useful to come back in. If she doesn't want to do that, then that's her choice. I'm not about trying to sell to people or force things on people. It's very much they buy my service from me because they see the value, and hopefully this little case study has helped you understand what the service is, how it works, and the value that you can get from it. So if you are in need of help with lower back pain, by all means just click the link in the description. It goes straight through to the page where you'll get the initial questionnaires. They're completely free, by the way. They get sent through to me. I'll then get you booked in for the consultation. You'll then have 2 weeks of support, and then the advice and recommendations and the 2 weeks of support. And then again, if you want to then rebook another consultation, then you're completely eligible, and I'm happy to do it as well. So hopefully this has given you an idea of the service. Hopefully it's given you an idea of the results that you can get. One thing I should say, these are her results for her lower back pain, her advice and recommendations for her lower back pain. They may apply to you. Some of them may apply to you. None of them may apply to you. So in some respects, take all that I've said with a pinch of salt, because it may not apply to you. Some of it may apply to you. So have that in mind now that you've watched it. So many thanks for watching. Hopefully it's been helpful. Again, as I mentioned, links below. Please do get in contact. Many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Chris Evolve Training. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.